So, hello, my name is Natalie. I am an Akashic Records reader, spiritual guide, and founder of Soulscape Community Facebook group. I firmly believe that by sharing our unique experiences and relating with one another, we begin to co create community within which we can explore and heal. And that is the exact purpose of today's panel. What is gender? So, on that note, let's dive right in. And to start off, I will read a channeled message from the Akashic Records of the panel, and then we will segue into introductions of our panelists. All right. So, a message from the Akashic Records of Pleasure Panel. What is gender? This question you ask, it is not meant to have an answer. It is within you, of you, defined by you, and as such, it has no denotation, only experience, your unique experience. It is the wave of ether and cosmos all spun into one, the thread that connects through your body. Picture it running, a thin, glowing white light of thread from your crown through your throat and then through your body. It runs along your arm all the way to your fingertip, to the point of contact you make with the outside world. It lights up in response. It pulsates through and back towards your core, where the energy builds and it pushes down, down, down into your toes and into earth. This is the expression, the unique expression of your existence. So when you ask us, what is gender? We say back to you, what are you? Are you a thing to be defined at a point in time, finite, complete, comprehensive? Or are you the culmination of all your stories, all your histories, all spun into that one infinite thread? The common thread that connects all pieces, all parts of you across all incarnations, past, present, and future, across space and time. We say the latter. We say you are never done being defined, but you are a constant evolution of that definition, infinite. Hmm. So, moving on to introductions, I guess I can start. I need to have this up. I have the notes in case anyone asks, because I need to know what I'm talking about, because I'll forget. So, my name is Natalie. My name is my pronouns, or kitten if you're lucky, but that's only with consent. Um, I guess recently I filled out a dating profile and didn't have to specify my gender, but it did ask, and agender is currently feeling most aligned, so that is what I have gone with. I am located outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada. And fun facts about me: I ride horses, and I have like a really odd talent for being able to walk the line of like way oversharing, but still somehow people not actually learning much about me.
Hello, I'm Ren. I use she and they pronouns. I'm currently at my apartment, which is in Kitsilano, Vancouver, on Musqueam, Squamish, and tsleil territory. Um, and I am non-binary, for lack of another term. That is the space, I suppose, for right now. But I mean, it's very, it's a fluid journey. I've been non-binary. I've been outwardly non-binary for a little over a year. Um, so still young in that as well. And I know Natalie from many years back when we worked at David's Tea together back in the era of working at the mall, which was always fun and cool and an adventure every time. Yeah. Oh, I need to wait. Can I? Yeah, we have matching best boo tattoos because we're best boos. And I don't know. Fun fact about me: I'm a podcaster. I'm a journalist. I make podcasts for my work. Um, and I am a tarot reader and a dancer. And I have a little cat who's probably going to be on camera at some point because he loves to be involved. So we might see him. All right, and I will pass it on.
Guess that means I'm up. All right, I am KT. I am from Tulsa. I identify as non-binary. I also kind of resonate with transgender, and a joyful goblin boy. Because something about being just like a little creature that likes shiny things kind of fits with me and helps me conceptualize like how I feel about gender. And I know Natalie through the joys of the internet. Um, just, sharing, being in different groups, and then ending up in the Soulscape community. So I have a goal I'm saving up towards. I really like hippos, and I want to make a trip to Cincinnati to meet Fiona the hippo and feed her. That's like one of my bucket list things.
That's perfection. So, first question, which I guess goes to me, is just sharing about journey with gender. And what I kind of was saying with that is like, if there's a moment in time or an anecdote that stands out, that was kind of a turning point that we could all kind of share about. So, I guess for me, I think it actually happened in my Facebook group. So, I had met someone on Facebook dating who, oddly enough, it turned out I had known about 15 years prior. And it was funny because when we figured that, I was like, yeah, so we've already had a first kiss. And they were like, oh shit, okay. Really funny. But they asked me, I didn't have my pronouns in my dating profile, not because I don't think that's important, but truthfully because I was like, I don't know. Like I hadn't thought about it enough to know. So it didn't feel good to put something down. But then they did the whole like, my pronouns and gender is this. What's yours? And I felt like I had to give an answer. And so I defaulted to she, her, hers. And they wrote a post in the group using those pronouns to describe me. And it was like instant cringe. Like it just didn't feel good. But basically, what that led to me questioning was then like the next layer about gender that I had thought to be connected to those pronouns in past. I was like, well, if those pronouns don't match, then like, what the fuck else is going on? And then I talked to my friend Robin, who Ren has met, who lives in Toronto, and they kind of helped me through the like where I'm at on this journey and like um the broader analysis of gender that it goes through my head because I'm a very like analytical person and I'm kind of like gradually reconciling the two as much as they need to be reconciled. I don't necessarily think that they do. So that's me in a really convoluted nutshell as always. On to you, Ren.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing so openly to start off a conversation. I mean, I have a more direct anecdote, but I have always loved costuming and performing. I've always been someone who loves being on stage and performing. And I was thinking about this morning, and I was like, I think everything feels like drag to me. Like any expression. Like today, I feel like I'm kind of in girl drag because I'm wearing a skirt and I just whatever. But then if I'm I no matter what, it all kind of feels like drag for, and that's sort of where I'm at with my journey, I think right now, in that it's all kind of, it's like kind of how it is, and I'm not really trying to align to any which way at the moment. But I think, and I knew this already about, I've known this about myself for a while, which is I think why I always love performance, and I like to perform sort of exaggerated versions of gender with my dance and with things like that. Just to kind of explore that space. But I think the more recent moment of like wanting to be more outwardly non-binary in my inside life, not just my outside life, my performance life, was um, through part of a journey I had with getting ill, with having reproductive system issues, and having my body medicalized in that way. It made me think about my physical body in a way that I hadn't before, because I think I just hadn't really correlated my physical self to a lot of other parts of my life until I had to. And so that experience made me really think more about like how I actually would like to have my gender written down on paper, because I suddenly had to have it. And so that was kind of when things I think got more quantified. I like things to be in the ether a lot, but I think this experience made me think more about directly stating and taking that step to like be more definitively whatever it was going to be. And it ended up being really affirming and nice to actually externalize a little bit of this process. So yeah, and that's been like in the past year or so. So that's where I'm at now. I'm going to pass it on to KT.
So I thought I would share kind of how I came into my name. because that sort of relates to my gender and is similar to my gender uh, journey. Like 10 years ago, I was working as a case manager, and someone had faxed in some verification paperwork. It had nothing identifying who it was for at all. But there was just like a scribble with my legal name on it, and all you could read was a K and a T. And I was like, huh, KT. I guess that's me. And so I had I giggled with the unit clerk, and she started calling me that. Actually, she like just kind of casually be like, "Hey, KT." And so she and like one other person would call me KT. And like 5 years pass. I'm still using my legal name, but I realized that I'm calling myself KT. I'm like, "Oh, hey, KT, all right, we can do this." Or, "Oh man, KT, you forgot about that." And so then I think, well, if this is what I call myself and this is how I feel, should I not, share that with other people and have other people call me that? So I did like a soft open and had a few close friends start calling me that and like using that in messages. And then I was like, made a new Facebook profile and was like, all right, here we are. This is KT. This is what feels good. Like when people call me that, I smile and I feel happy. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And then when people use, like at work, sometimes people will still use my legal name. And I'm just like, that's not me. Like you can say that, but that's not my name. And I really feel the same. Like it's the same with pronouns. I kind of asked some people to start using they, them. And then, and I've been using they them as my pronouns for probably like about 4 years or so. But I recently had a conversation with my parents and was like, "Hey guys, I know you know this is a thing. I want you to practice. I actually want you to use these pronouns in this name." And with sort of my closest family, the people who have literally known me the longest, when they started using that, it really was like, yeah, here I am. Like, my mom can do it. My mom recognizes me. Everybody can recognize me. And so I was just kind of, that was my journey. That was what it felt like.
Really happy. That made me happy. Thank you for sharing. Thank you both for sharing. All right, on to the next one. What does it mean for you? And it's kind of may already have gotten answered, but it's an opportunity to share more if you want. What does it mean for you to be able to articulate your gender or affirm the absence of? Which that was my way of explaining how it feels for me. So I was like, but it's not. Anyway, currently it's confusing. Like I'm glad to be on the journey of figuring it out. Um, it's also really difficult sometimes to like there's a I don't know how to explain this. I know Ren, you and I have talked about this before, and I don't think it's a novel concept. I always get hung up on the words about it, but like I feel like there can be almost like a lot of gatekeeping for something that is supposed to be like we get to learn this as we go, and there's this weird expectation. It feels like that you have to be able to do it perfectly with the right language and all these things. And then I'm over here being like, okay, if it's that fluid, maybe why can't I choose to explain how it feels versus slap a label on it? Like people need it to have a label. And then what I see a lot of the time is labels being used in ways that are actually inconsistent with what the denotation of them is. And if that feels supportive to someone, like I'm not judging that, I do feel that it makes it even more complicated when I'm trying to figure out like how do I explain this? Um, and it feels really awesome on one side that I get to question internalized narratives and like oppressive doctrines and like all those things and do that. And I also kind of resent the fact that I have to explain it to people or that I have to say something. Just like that instance where someone's like, "What are your pronouns?" On the one side, this is where it's like the analytic versus the what I'm dealing with. 'Cause it's like, yeah, I think it's obviously really important that we acknowledge each other's pronouns and gender and affirm that for one another. And I dislike that I have to define myself for someone to feel like they can meet me where I'm at. Like I dislike that I have to be able to put it on paper in air quotes if people are just listening, like on a dating site to be able to be respected as who I am, like that's kind of also bullshit. So that's where I'm at right now. That's my internal struggle. Existential crisis of my 15-year-old self is continuing into my 30s. It's fine. It's just the next level. Um, that's it. Ren, your turn.
I think existentialism is probably a good part. It's a big part of being human. I don't know. I don't feel like I don't want to let go of the existential crisis anymore because I think that's just part of being a being on in this little iteration. But yeah. How does my gender journey feel? I mean, I guess off the top, honor and a privilege to have the space to do this. Um, I know, just in my own family line, it's not been a lot of space to even have these conversations. And for many people, there isn't. And so I feel really lucky that I'm able to have these considerations and think about it. For me, I'm trying to really kind of allow this to be a space of play for myself. And I recognize that that in itself is such an honor and a privilege to be able to feel spacious and to feel like I can have a sense of play. So for one, there's that. Really grateful for that. And it's been a way to, I mean, it's been a funny kind of joining together of the like emotional body and the physical body, I think, where I feel like I have been on this journey for a while, but the process of like actually claiming things more in more external ways in the past year or so has really been a nice way to kind of reclaim my physical body and join it to my emotional body at a time when my physical body was not doing great. Um, and it's been really affirming in like the the gender joy way, but also in kind of a advocacy, personal advocacy, medical advocacy way. It's also been very affirming. Because it changes the way that you talk to people about yourself in a very like solid way. And so for that, that's also been comforting this whole process. But yeah, I'm really trying to keep a sense of playfulness. And I have, I've always been somebody who's really happy existing um, in like a fluid space in all, not just in gender, but like in most parts of my life. And so it just feels kind of like being more um, authentically in that space that feels right for me.
So I feel like, um, well, I guess one thing to say, as non-binary, sometimes I feel both masculine and feminine, but most of the time I feel neither masculine or feminine, just sort of something else or something in the middle. And as someone who was, raised as a woman in America, uh, I feel like, especially at the beginning of my sort of gender journey, I spent a lot of times just trying not to be feminine. No, I don't want to be seen as a girl or a woman. Don't call me a lady. That's not me. That's not what I am. In fact, self disclosure, even as I was setting up my camera today, I kind of had it set up and I was like, oh man, no, you can see my tits. There's way too much tits going on here. So I like took my phone and raised it up on a book so that it was a better angle. And I was like, I look more non binary now. That's better. And and I also, more recently am trying to work at, I don't have to look non binary. I can look like myself, and it's whatever I want it to be. I look non binary because I am non binary, but there's still that little part of me that's like, you gotta not be feminine. You can't wear ruffles. You gotta keep your hair short. You gotta do this. And I feel like it's just kind of, it's a constant thing that's there that I think about. Maybe not constant, but fairly consistent thing that I'm like thinking about. Yay. It's just presentation is just such a big part of our society. So I think it becomes a big part of gender as well.
I like that I'm sitting here just wearing all the ruffles. Like, um,
And you can.
yeah, I can. And also, wearing ruffles doesn't mean I'm more feminine or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like, I started dressing more like this It was a journey with figuring out who I am. It had nothing to do with that. And that's also why for me, I like agender because I think it aligns with where I'm at, like on the analytical side of stripping these nuances from a gender. Like ruffles aren't feminine and like cargo shorts aren't masculine or like that kind of thing. We perceive them that way, yes, but I think that's my own like internal like fuck you to the internalized narratives and my way of doing my political like stance on things with like meeting myself currently. Like it could change, but that's just like where it's at. But that reminded me of me as a kid where I literally was like 11 years old and I never felt comfortable dressing like I do now because of my maybe because of this stuff, like things with connecting to my body. I've had a lot of like body dysmorphia until I got my tubes removed last year. And then finally I was like, oh, this body matches me. Like this makes sense now. And I think as a kid that led to a lot of struggles with how I dressed and how I presented. And I was like the 11-year-old girl wearing like cargo shorts and a Jar Jar Binks t-shirt because I also didn't want to show my body because something wasn't connecting. So there was a question posed in the group. I don't necessarily have comments on it, but I'll read it out loud and hold space if anyone does. And then kind of go from there. So the question was, and I mean, y'all can see it, but androgyny and fluid and neutral gender identity as a cultural trend has come and gone over the decades since at least the 1920s. Transgender presentation for far longer. How are the current cultural trends, oh my God, of gender expression different or how are they the same? And the person did specify they're using trend in the sense of a direction of statistical change, not in the shallow sense of fashion. And I appreciate that they clarified the use of the term. Um, any commentary on that?
It's a really good question. I think I would say right off the bat, I don't have the knowledge base to answer this the way that it's been asked, but I will say I would be curious to see. I think statistically we would never get an accurate number of these trends because people don't take note of marginalized communities statistically, and so I think it would be actually very hard to tell if there is an increase now because of the internet. There's an increase in visibility, but even that, I think you can argue maybe not necessarily. I don't know. I feel like I this is all speculation. Also, I don't actually have an answer to this. I want to I want to put that right up. I don't know, but in from my own experience in history and just like my family background and all that, I know culturally, um, androgyny has been around. I think as long as we've had a social concept of gender. So it's not just a and I don't. I'm not quite sure. Also, this question what they mean by transgender versus like, are they like? If you mean like, I'm, I'm anyway. This is semantics, but I think exploration and performance of gender that falls outside the binary has been a really strong part of human culture since we've had a social concept of gender. And I would be curious to know if there has actually been an increase, or if it's just that we are coming together and there's more visibility now. Because I know, in gender, in cultures all around the world, there's a very rich history of performance of gender outside the binary. And I think androgyny is an ingrained and baked in part of human culture. And there's always been a great love, a great respect, a great community within those groups, from the beginning. And so I don't know. It's a really interesting question. I think you would need a fair amount of sociological research to actually be able to answer.
So when I first read this question, the first thing that came to my mind was vocabulary. A lot of people say, like, especially people who come into different gender identities or sexualities older in life, they say, well, I've always felt this way, but I didn't have the words for it. I didn't understand it because I didn't have the words for it. And we are constantly developing terms and vocabulary and understanding. I mean, the understanding of transgender and what that means has changed just significantly over the past 20, 40 years. And the words that we use and the way we describe things and what's considered respectful and disrespectful has developed a lot. And I feel like there's a lot more niche things. I mean, when it comes to both gender and sexuality, there's the umbrella terms. You have transgender, you have queer, you have gay, and then there's just hundreds of little things that come underneath that different people can connect to and be like, oh, more here, less of that, more of that. And I feel like that's kind of one of the big changes, because in like sort of in history, and again, I don't have specific time frames, but uh like spinster, when it comes to people who were assigned as women and seen as women, spinster was a term that was used for basically, it meant anyone that wasn't married, but it was also meaning, anyone who didn't quite fit with the I'm a woman and I like men and I'm going to have children. There were trans people that ended up under that term. There were gay women that ended up under that term, lesbian women. Um, Everybody just sort of got labeled as this. This is the different. This is the othering. Whereas I feel like now, and part of this is visibility, and part of this is the connection that we have through the internet and through just having more access to more people in our lives. I feel like it's a lot easier for people to find something that fits for them as opposed to just other. Like instead of just, I'm not part of main society, which I'm not, I am non binary. Instead of saying, I'm not a woman, I can say, hey, I am a joyful non binary goblin boy. And that makes me happy. And I feel like that's kind of that was just what I thought of when I first heard the question.
I think that makes the rest of us happy too. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, no, I appreciate you all sharing that. What you just shared, KT, reminded me too of like how I explained my healing through the church, because it was like there was only good or bad. There was no what makes sense for me for a long time. And then as I grew up and figured out like my spiritual path, I got to figure out how to articulate that for myself and realize that if so many of us have been, and this isn't like a novel concept, but every time I think of it, it's just really powerful. Like if so many of us have been othered by some system or whatever, that means there's this group of others that can heal together, which is like exactly why this channel and the community exists. And yeah, I don't know, it makes me happy. So I appreciate you both sharing that. I have ponderings, but nothing really to add. So we can move on. Yes. Next question is, what would you suggest to someone who is beginning to question gender in their life? And I guess for me, since I've been very much in that over the last little bit, I think it is that community aspect and just having people where I could talk to them and explain what was going through my head, and also know that it was safe to talk to them if I didn't have the words to do it right yet. Because like I have to learn that. Everyone has to learn that. And sometimes you're learning as you're doing it for yourself, right? I don't have all the words first. So it was important to have those people I could talk to, and have the journey kind of mirrored for me to also just know that I had access to step down that path. Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. So my suggestion would be find people, find communities, trust your gut or however you feel intuition, because not everyone experiences it in their solar plexus, um, on who is a safe person for you to talk to, and then make those connections and ask the questions. And like you don't need to know all the answers right away. It doesn't need to be determined right here and now. And it's okay if it changes. Yeah.
I guess I would say first, as with many things in life, like take a deep breath, thank yourself, give yourself some love, give yourself some time. Um, let make sure that you're taking care of yourself through this process. Um, you know, just like be really nice to yourself. Um, you're opening up this amazing door for yourself. Like recognize that as well, and that is the first. Just like take that second to feel what, to really sit with yourself and make sure that you're walking like hand in hand with yourself through this. Yeah, there's no rush to come to some kind of conclusion. And that you can do it however, like whatever feels right to you. You can take whatever path you desire. For some of us, we want to read books, do research. It always helps to have cultural and historical context. Like that's always a nice thing to do. So if that's what's right for you, if you want and need community as well, you can. There's like beautiful, amazing communities out there, as Natalie was saying. There's people that will walk with you through it. For me, I needed it to be something that kind of germinated inside myself for a little bit before, and that's also fine. Um, it's your journey, and you can do this however you desire, and it can be scary, and it can also be really fun and silly, depending on wherever you are. And so, I mean, just to kind of walk with yourself through this, intentionally, and make sure that you're really caring for yourself the whole way through, as you would with many other times when you come face to face with yourself and you're really doing this kind of deep work to recognize that it is really big work. um, and it's making a beautiful, like you're making another magical space in the universe by doing it. So congratulate yourself for that. And just whatever you might need, just know that it is out there for you, and there are so many opportunities to find what helps you feel safe and inspired on the journey.
So I think in if I were speaking to someone who's just starting their gender journey, the first thing I would say is there are no wrong answers. I know it may not feel that way, but there really are no wrong answers. It's just about, again, about coming to yourself, about figuring out what you are, what you want, what you need. And if you think that you're going to go this one direction and this is going to work for you, and then 6 months later you're like, no, I thought trans girl was going to work, but that's really not it, not a trans girl. That's okay. That doesn't mean that you were wrong, or that you lied to anyone, or that you didn't do it correctly. It just means that you're exploring, and you can go in any direction at any time. And it's more important that you are able to care for yourself, and that you're able to survive, and that you're able to make it through this wild adventure that is living in. I mean, it's hard times. There's a lot going on. We're living uh, in a world that is kind of stacked against the individual, and stacked against finding your joy and your expression. And so giving yourself space to do that, I think, is really important. And yeah, just remember that there's no wrong answers. If you change, that's okay. If at the end you're like, you know what, nope, I'm cisgender, that is okay too. It's all right to go through all of this and then come back to where you started. That's how healing happens. Sometimes healing is not linear. It can be any direction that you need it to be.
I love that. What next question is, what support do you wish you'd had, or are you grateful that you did have throughout the journey? I think I kind of already answered that because I had my people, and I have my people, and I love my people. So I'll pass to Ren.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same. Queer community. I was lucky that I have a wonderful circle of queer community, and um, I I already had like most of my social life was already queer people, and people across the gender spectrum. And so I didn't feel any sense of like isolation or anything. Like I had a lot of people that I could just talk to about whatever, and I had people who were there to help me feel safe and to lift me up and to say, "Oh my God, this is so cool." And so that helped a lot. And I had a friend send me some books and some like gender affirming stuff, and just encouraged me to like try experimenting with things, and that helped a lot as well. So I mean, yeah, I was lucky. I felt very supported. I guess if there was anything, it would have maybe I would have liked more materials that were um, kind of talking about the like you don't the idea of you don't have to like you don't have to like fit into any of these things that you know about so far, because I think that's a big thing when you're starting is like, well, what am I then? If I'm not this, then I have to be something else. And I think I would have then it's out there. It probably was just that at the beginning of your journey, you don't really even know what to look for. But I think it would have been I would have liked more stuff exploring like the joy of being non-binary, or the joy of like not the joy of not actively not aligning really. And there are communities like that that I know of now, but I think that would have been the only thing that would have maybe helped. But otherwise, I had a really supportive crew of people. So yeah.
I have a quick commentary. That's literally how the name of the panel happened because when I was talking to my friend Robin and I was like, the fuck do I put in my dating profile? People are asking me my gender and like on a personal and kind of like a philosophical level, I don't think it exists because it all has to do with some outside like narrative that has been forced upon us. And then we're like defining all these things based on that. And it's like, if I'm defining the absence of something based on affirming its existence, I don't feel like I am truly questioning the problematic narrative that started because I'm still letting it dictate how I define me in like some weird roundabout way. Like that's my existential thingy. So they were like, just put like what is gender in your profile. And I was like, I feel like people need to know me before I can do that, and they'll understand that it's not meant in a problematic way. So that said, when you add in a lot of the other things that I have in there, like you probably know that I don't mean it in a problematic way. But that's how it started because I was like, what even is gender? Like that's where I was at, and like that's why I went with the agender thing because to me that's the closest label I can get to saying that, so that other people will understand. But yeah, so I like that. Like, what is it? I'm not here to answer that question. Like, yeah. Anyway, sorry, Katie, on to you.
So, as far as supports go, I do know I am very lucky, especially when it comes to like external supports. The people around me, my partners, my friends, my family have all been really supportive, and understanding, and just very much coming from a stance of like, even if they don't understand it, they want me, they want me to live my truth. They want me to be, genuinely who I am. So I think really, as far as anything lacking, it would be more just internal support, just myself really fully getting into it and appreciating it and accepting and embracing that. As I kind of touched on before, like my parents knew in that like I'm Facebook friends with my mom, so I know that she's seen the posts that are like, "Hey, I use they them pronouns and identify this way, and this is da 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 da." And I know she's seen all the posts of like support trans kids and all of these things. But I didn't explicitly have that conversation with her until like this past December. It had been years that like it was like I knew that she knew and she knew that I knew she knew, but we hadn't talked about it. And I think a lot of that was because I was scared because I just wasn't quite sure. I knew she didn't understand that she would be loving and appreciative, but that she would have to learn some things and change the way that she thought about things. And I was afraid of like making her go through that process of making her, mourn the daughter that she had all these ideas about, or mourn, the name that she gave me. Because I know she very carefully picked out that name and it was a great name and it served me well. And now I have moved, I've kind of shed it in a lot of ways. Uh, and honestly, I was in therapy and my therapist that I work with was like, don't you think you should give her that chance? Don't you think you should let her mourn that? And I was like, oh man, that's a huge light bulb. And that's when I did actually, like, I sat down with both my parents and I was like, hey, this is how I identify. This is how I would like you to talk to me. This is what I do mind. This is what I don't mind. And that was just me kind of holding myself back. And so I feel, yeah, if I could go back 5 years and talk to myself, I would just say, hey, trust yourself, trust the people around you. um, you can do this and they can do this too. Like, just be able to trust the people that you know and love to support you.
Um, yeah, I appreciate both of you. I was gonna say all of you, but I mean, I can say that too. I guess not inaccurate. Sharing all the things so openly. I'm used to spilling my guts out online, but like I know not everyone is, so it's a big thing. So just thank you for this. Okay, question. What is a current struggle you're dealing with slash processing regarding gender? Uh, Mine would be a workplace that doesn't feel inclusive. I led a training and did a call in to use pronouns in email signatures. And apparently, apparently it circled to the VPs of the company and they didn't know what to do with it because they're cishet white dudes. Um, but one of the feedbacks that got circled back to me was someone questioning, well, isn't that going to out people? Like, that's a problem if they're not out yet. And I'm like, that's a really misinformed statement. And is kind of the reason why I'm saying we need to do better, actually. Um, because I have in my email signature to use gender inclusive greetings and my name is my pronouns. Like, I put it there 'cause there's no easy way to explain it to people because they're not used to that a lot of the time either. Because I mean, even when I'm filling out an application, if it has boxes, there's no option to just say my name. Like, it's not on there, but they them doesn't feel right to me. So I had to just explain it. And some people are being more mindful, and I can see that they're at least trying to do better. Um, but the fact that a comment like that happened automatically shows me that I'm not safe. And like, I also recognize that of all the people in the workplace, I am one of the more privileged ones to be taking the step to say, hey, this is who I am. And so then I think how other people might feel, and it's really shitty. Um, so that's the thing currently. I also have decided though that I am not going to stop saying things about it because I don't want to work in a place that's not at least willing to try to do better. Um, and thankfully, it seems like they are taking some steps in that direction. I also know it will take time. So that's just the current difficulty, though, is like I'm used to feeling like I don't belong places, like being autistic, like that's my general MO. And now being in a space where once again I feel like I'm on the outside of everything and I don't quite belong is really hard.
Thank you for sharing that. That is really difficult. And I think you're doing an amazing bit of advocacy for others because I'm sure there are others in your office, in your workplace, who also kind of are feeling the same way. And, you taking that on is very brave. And I think it's going to make other people also feel safe. So, yeah, that's a big thing. Um, yeah. Current challenges. I don't, like the medical system. Um, gender affirming care, um, like very specific. I mean, broad and specific. When you have a reproductive health issue, you already kind of know it's going to be a situation. In terms of gender, it's going to be a situation because inclusive medical care is a fairly recent thing, and people are not being like standard. There's no standard of education really on that broadly with healthcare providers, which is a huge thing people have been advocating for quite some time. And there's some progress being made, which is great, but there's just a lot of stuff that we just like don't know in terms of that sphere, and so it's hard to get care. Like the question of like if you want to take gender affirming hormones, but you are also taking hormones for other reasons, what is going to it's a big question, and so that's sort of something I'm navigating. At some point, I've been thinking and looking into microdosing testosterone for the non-binary journey, which is a thing that is becoming more known amongst non-binary people as a way to like kind of help achieve a presentation that feels more right to you but doesn't kind of align with one end or other of the gender spectrum, which is so cool that we can do that. That's so awesome. um, but yes, I'm also taking a whole ton of lady hormones at the moment for medical reasons, and so it's quite a cocktail, and we just like don't know. Like if you were to ask a doctor, they're like, look, I have no idea what happened. So, just in many ways, I think, kind of like similar to what Natalie was saying, when you are in a more marginalized group of people, it just isn't like a knowledge base that you feel. Besides, there's community knowledge, which is so helpful, community knowledge and things that people will share amongst themselves. But in terms of like when you go to face the mainstream, there like just like isn't a knowledge base to support you there, and so it's a lot because you have to advocate for yourself and often do a lot of educating while you're trying to advocate for yourself, which is so difficult in whatever sphere that is, right? Like if that's your health or your workplace or whatever, it's like it's difficult to have to do that. So I feel like have to like I just feel like I have to do a lot of explaining to people who are very educated and should probably know. And so that's kind of like it's a little exasperating. But that's my current challenge. I feel optimistic that I'm going to figure out something that works for me, but it is frustrating that you have to jump through so many little hoops to just like feel better and like feel good about yourself and um, try to live your life. And it's just like it's so complicated. So that's probably my challenge at the moment. Yeah. How about you, Katie?
Well, I mean, really, both of the things that have already been mentioned. Definitely affirming the issues with the medical system. I do have a lot of, physical diagnoses. I recently had a surgery a couple months ago, and usually with my individual doctors and specialists, you get them to write down your preferred name, and when you tell them enough times, eventually they catch on. But with the surgery, I talked to so many people and I went through so many things and I got dead named so many times. Literally, the first and only person who asked, "What would you like to be called?" was the nurse anesthetist. So it was like, "KT, call me KT. All right, count backwards from 10. We're ready to knock you out." And then, like, suddenly I was awake again and in the car, because that's how surgery and anesthesiology works. uh, and it's just, yeah, it's like a constant battle. And you learn to appreciate the baby steps. With my work, I work with people who are actively in severe mental health crisis. These people are very sick. um, they are experiencing psychosis, suicidal ideations, all sorts of really difficult mental health challenges. And so one of the things that I really pushed for is a unified policy for transgender patients. When I started, we didn't have any sort of like system for what we would do and what we would say and how we would care for these people that came through our door. And it was a big deal every time. And the nurses would be like, "I don't know where to put them. I don't know what room, what side of the hallway do they go on?" And so, yeah, it took a lot of effort to be like, "All right, this is what we do. We put them in the middle of the hallway. We do this. We block the rooms. This is when they get showers, because everything is very like, the men are on one side, the women are on the other side. The men take showers in the morning. The women take showers in the afternoon. And when you have a transgender patient, you have to kind of turn all of that on its head, just because of the logistics, of providing medical care and of covering all of our liabilities and things. But at the same time, you want to treat them as an individual with dignity and respect, and give them that affirming care that makes them think that that they deserve to be here and they should want to be here, and that we want them here. And so that is going to be a forever struggle, I think. And a lot of it is the baby steps. It's seeing that one coworker that, 3 years ago I heard her say the T slur, which I guess for clarification, I'm talking about the word tranny, which is very inappropriate, and we don't like that. We don't use that. I heard her say that, and of course I called her out in the moment, and now she uses people's pronouns appropriately. She's just like, all right, well, we have a transgender woman coming in, and this is her other, this is her preferred name. And, I watched her just handle it like a pro and getting to see, her journey and everyone else as they kind of figure out the best way to provide care for this population that is so vulnerable. Um, and yeah, it's there's always so many little struggles and so many things here and there, even in the victories sometimes it still work. We just recently changed our badges, and you can choose to put your pronouns on your badges, and I was like, it was actually hard for me because I was like, I don't really feel safe putting they, them on my badge because sometimes I have to show my badge to police officers, because some of my coworkers are not understanding of, while they may appreciate binary trans people and understand people who have transitioned, fully from one side of the spectrum to the other, they don't understand non-binary and they don't understand the use of they, them pronouns. And so it doesn't feel safe. And at the same time, I didn't feel like I could put she, her. I was like, no, that's lying. I don't want to do that either. So I just left my pronouns off. But that was my choice. Um, at least I had the choice though. And again, it's just steps inside steps, and everybody, trying to teach as much as you can and be as understanding as you can while still putting that line down and being like, you will respect me, you will respect these other patients, you will provide gender affirming care for the people in your care. Full stop.
Yes. Yes. I think when you were talking about talking with your parents before, your mom, I think you said, um, it made me think of that too because I know I've talked with a friend a couple times whose kiddo is on the journey of figuring all of this out, and it changes often because also this is like a 12-year-old kid who's learning the language, and they're like, what is right, what is me, and like also they're 12, like the me I was at 12 has changed so much the me I am at 30. And I'm like, how fucking cool that this 12-year-old is in a house where they feel safe enough to reaffirm and rearticulate who they are like every week and get closer and closer to that point. Like that is so fucking cool. And parents will have to grieve, but that grief should never stifle that other person's journey. Like those are separate things. And that's really important to keep in mind. And it's like, find your resources. Don't put it on your kid. Support your kid. Like, yeah, that's how I kind of see that at least. But yeah, I appreciate the work that you're doing. That's so important. So thank you. All right, last question. We're at the hour mark. Woo, look at us go. If you were to describe what the process of affirming your gender has meant for you in one word, what would that be? I'm going to pass it to Ren, and I'm going to go last.
Alchemy.
Joyful.
The one word, I think, is reconciliation. The way I would explain it is like coming home. Like it feels like coming home to me. Thank you both so much for joining me for this conversation. I really appreciate it. I know Ren, like I obviously know you pretty darn well at this point. Katie, it's been awesome like getting to know you and putting a face to our interactions from online spaces. Super appreciate you both sharing so openly. And to anyone who tuned in for the live, thank you for joining us. To those tuning into the replay, I will say don't forget to hit the subscribe button to get notifications of new episodes coming out. Feel free to join us in Soulscape community, to continue the exploration and to build the community that we've all been talking about, so that you have, hopefully, we try, we'll say spaces committed to providing safety within which you can explore and heal. And that is a journey in and of itself. And yeah, I appreciate you all for being here and co creating this amazing space with me. So thank you.